¿Qué lo que hay, mi gente? Welcome to Let's Hablar podcast, brought to you by Hablemos Productions. Vamos a hablar.
Happy New Year, guys! This is the first time we're filming in 2024. So I just want to say again, thanks for joining us on Let's Hablar podcast. Welcome to the show. Today we have our wonderful and amazing Kai. And then we have the forever fabulous Clara.
Hi.
We're going to be discussing, fam, all things that have to do with toxic behavior, abuse, responsibility, and we're also going to discuss a little bit about karma, because I do believe that karma's a bitch and it does come to bite you in the ass in the moment that you least expect it, and sometimes in the way that you least expect.
Yes.
But we're going to be relating this towards the show Maid on Netflix. If you have not watched it, I do highly suggest that you do, and that if you are being abused or you are a victim of domestic violence, please seek help. You are entitled to feel safe, and you are entitled not to be in a predicament that is endangering to your life or mental state. So please seek help. I'll probably put something in the description, phone numbers, website, things like that. Just know that it does vary from state to state. So I'll just try to see if I can find like a universal hotline or something like that for you guys. Really quickly, Netflix. The reason why this got me thinking was because Kai and I watched this show a while back ago, Maid, and at first there were certain things that I didn't really, my initial thought is not, oh, that's abuse, but this show really did kind of
like open up
that, you know, my eyes in that sense, such as like financial abuse. I didn't really think of that as like a form of abuse until I saw the show, and Kai made me watch it because I was like, I didn't see that show. I saw it on my suggestions.
Honestly, I haven't even heard of it. It's called Maid.
Maid. M-A-I-D.
Really good show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think it's like probably 7 parts, maybe 7 or 8 parts, the standard for Netflix. But then it got me thinking, because the new season of Love is Blind is coming out, and that's a show that we also watch because we fell in love with Lauren and Cam. Season 1, they seemed like the real couple that had legit connection from the experiment. And they're still married to this day. So to me, they were kind of like what would be the goal for someone participating in that type of show. Mm-hmm. And then when I was looking into it, I thought there was only 1 lawsuit in Love is Blind, and it turns out there's 3. But we're going to talk about 2 women, their lawsuits, but also Nancy and Bartise from season 3, because I think she didn't realize that she was in potentially what could have led up to a domestic violence type situation. Had she gone through with the marriage, had they actually said I do. Backstory on that: Maid, young woman, she is with her partner, the child's father. They're young. So they're like probably in their early 20s when they had their child. There's an altercation where he throws, I don't remember if it was a bowl or a glass or something, at her. It hits the wall, glass shatters, she gets out. She initially does not want to say that she's a victim of domestic violence, but they're telling her, like, you need to report it, that is domestic violence. And eventually she goes learning through her journey that she was a victim of domestic violence, and not only was she a victim of domestic violence, but she had lived a pattern of domestic violence because of her parents, the way her mom, the way her mom lives her life and things like that. So she finally gets out and goes her own way with her daughter and is able to have her life. But what got me with that, with Nancy and Bartise, was the emotional abuse, right? Because there's different kinds of abuse. There's physical, which is the one that most people would assume. Emotional, sexual abuse, and if that's a trigger, I'm so sorry. Financial abuse and psychological abuse. I think Nancy was potentially a victim of 2 types of abuse, which is emotional and psychological abuse. Because when they're in the pods, right? So those rooms where there's a wall in between, they're only talking to each other. They're only talking to each other and through a wall. He had this connection with her. And as soon as they go to the real world, he's like in love with his other potential, the other person that he thought he had a connection with because of how she looks. She's a smokehouse. I think that's what he said she was. And he told his now engaged partner that when he and Raven, the other person who he had a connection with, walk into a room, that people look at them and think, wow, they're hot, like they're attractive, they're sexy, whatever.
They're a great couple.
They're great.
Yeah. So, and making her kind of feel bad about her looks, and then his affection starts to kind of change, where he's like more withdrawn. He's not as communicative, like not communicating with her.
After they chose to say yes to each other?
Or how does that
When
work?
they were engaged. After they were engaged.
Oh, after they were engaged.
So they weren't married, but they're engaged.
Yeah.
Okay.
They go through that. He starts to be distant. They have a private conversation, in my opinion, amongst a couple. And on the day that she's meeting his parents, he brings it up to his parents, knowing that his parents are very, like, I want to say, like, conservative in a sense that they're pro-lifers, and she's more pro-choice.
Yeah.
So that, to me, was a little bit like you're almost like creating sabotage. With
Putting her on the spot.
Yeah. Because how are you going to bring that up knowing your parents feel a certain way, and it's a private conversation that you guys had together on the day she's meeting them? That's their first initial impression of her, is that she would abort a baby. That's a different conversation for a different day. But I didn't think that was good, and then eventually she was like, you know what, before the I do's, right? Before like probably 2 or 3 weeks before they get married, she says, I don't think that this is going to work. I think we should say no at the altar because you're not who I thought you were. And he's like, I'm going to change. Goes through this whole, like, trying to redeem himself, be affectionate. He even takes her to a permanent jewelry place where they put, like, the permanent bracelets and stuff like that. Gets her one as a symbol of their love. Okay. And they had agreed that if either of them were going to say no, they would let each other know prior to the altar, so that way they're not blindsided. He did not do that. He waited till they were at the altar and said no in front of everybody. And Nancy is a Latina, so her family, her brothers were not happy. They couldn't remind me of my
That's
cousin.
narcissistic behavior, and we've had this conversation before, you know. So her family, like...
Mom acted like our moms. Her brother acted like your brothers. Like, he went over there and he's like, why the F are we all here? You're trying to play my sister, make her look stupid in front of our family.
But I gotta cut in, though, because I think... I definitely agree that, like, he was inappropriate. But to say, like, emotional abuse is hard to say because, like, I know in my line of work, like, it's really, really hard to prove that somebody is emotionally abusive. Like, there has to be, like, a line of, like, your actions are then causing this other person. And this is just in kind of, like, my space, right? So you guys know the situations I've been through, right? So, like, yeah, people are assholes, right? The straight up assholes. But to be, like, emotionally when I think of emotionally abusive, I think of, like, just because people are saying those things, not appropriate at all, but, like, that in terms, if we are trying to determine emotional abuse, what you're saying has to then lead me to be so make me do something, so like self-harming or lead to my mental depression or things like that. So it's kind of hard when, like, they were together for such a short period of time, not minimizing that at all whatsoever,
right?
But, like, looking at kind of the bigger picture, like, that conversation about, oh yeah, like, I am attracted to her, or she is a smoke show. She was hot. Again, not appropriate. Like Clara was saying, the narcissistic behaviors and stuff like that. Is it? And again, I don't think he's right at all. Okay, maybe I would teeter the line emotional abuse because I know that there were other things that came up as far as, like, his behavior and things like that. But I think when we're kind of, like, accusing somebody of being abusive, like, we need concrete facts. And because emotional abuse can't be proven, it can't be proven like physical abuse, right? Like, there's no marks, there's no bruises to say, like, no, you socked me in my face, I have a bruise. So with the emotional abuse, I know it's super, super hard because it's like, okay, so at what line do we draw? Like, okay, so I can't say that I'm attracted to somebody else. Mm-hmm. So I think that's super hard. And it's kind of like, okay, I look at it like if I'm in a relationship with somebody, can I have an open conversation about like, oh, this man just walked by, like, I think that person's super attractive, because I want to be able to, I want to be able to have 100% honesty with my partner and be able to say like, yeah, I think this person's attractive. That doesn't say that I don't think my husband or my partner is any less attractive. Again, I don't think how he went about anything was appropriate, and Nancy's a bombshell just as much as Raven was. And she's a boss. So like that was his loss 100%. But I think emotionally abusive, there has to be a lot more, I think, to it.
It was not only did he say like, Raven's a smokehouse, which granted Raven is very pretty and she's fit because she's a Pilates instructor. That's her business, so she's very fit. But the fact that you kind of almost like implant
little
strategically
seeds.
Little seeds to make this person feel bad about their body and about their looks, that's where I'm like, okay, you are emotionally trying to F her up
right
a lot, and it's like at random moments, so it can't be detected because it's not.
But I don't know,
you know.
I don't know if that was his intention. I think he saw her, and I don't think that he wasn't necessarily attracted to her. I think there was some type of attraction, but I think he was more attracted to Raven, and so his intent was that he wasn't fully attracted like he was to this other woman. So he was trying to like, he was in his own head and he was just trying to sabotage the relationship, and that's how he knew how. I don't think he had like that malintent necessarily to be like, oh, I'm gonna completely like tear this woman. I know people like that, just people just, I don't think he had that maliciousness.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I'm gonna be the sore thumb here because I didn't watch the show. I'm only familiar with it because of what I see on my, social media, but not because I watch. So you guys got to see how they are, in front of the cameras or whatnot, or even when they're, so you've seen these people's like mannerisms or whatnot. And like Kai said, it to me, it's true. Emotional abuse is kind of hard to prove. Like if you were going to bring it up in court or whatnot, the one that's the most easiest, of course, to pinpoint is the physical abuse. But in terms of emotional abuse, I feel that there are ways to prove it because in the line of work that we are in, we see a lot of people, especially children, their behavior changes. And with adults as well, those of us that have been part of some type of abuse, traumas or whatnot, we're later on judged like, oh, you're crazy, or you're this, or you're overreacting. Because at the end of the day, like she did say, she doesn't feel that maybe there was malice in it or something, but that's how good a narcissist is. I'm just learning these words and what they mean and putting them together. But since I was little, I've seen these behaviors in people, in my family, in my friends. And so, and then the emotional abuse can be. Now, if you have the relationship, like Kai said, where, hey, we're going to openly communicate, oh, I think that girl's very pretty. Or, hey, that guy's so handsome. Or, I love the way he looks. To me, that's not abusive, especially if you have that communication with your partner.
Right.
However, if you're going to do it in a sense where you're belittling, like, ooh, that girl looks really good. If you would wear this, like you're comparing. So to me, that is planting those little seeds, and that is with malice, because, and then especially if you're going to leave her at the altar, it's been like, you've been planning this, like, okay, now it could also be his way of showing like, I'd rather her hate me. And I'm going to tell her, I don't want this because that's the only way I can end this. So that is another way of psychological abuse, even for himself and for somebody else. Some people we can self-sabotage,
right.
And then it comes off as we are being mean to somebody else, but yet we're doing it to ourselves as well. So it's a hard topic in a sense, like Kai said, because the whole emotional abuse is really hard to prove, but it can at the end affect both parties, the person giving it and the person receiving it, you know?
I think that, like, for me, especially because Nancy me recordó a mi hermana Vicky. Like, the way she talks, I told you, like, she reminds me of my sister, the way she talks and the way she laughs. Like, her voice reminded me of my sister. And her family reminded me of our family. So to me, it was very much like, I felt connected to her story.
Right.
But what irritated me was the whole, like, he thought he was a gift to this earth. Like, bájale, no echas lumbre, no echas,
No le tanta lumbre, tanta salsa a tus tacos.
yeah, like, what the hell? Don't be putting lighter fluid onto the fire. You ain't that cute. You ain't that hot. I don't know why you think you're all that in a bag of chips. Like, you're really not. If you think that she's not attractive because someone else you find is more attractive, what makes you think that she can't think the same thing? But she's just not telling you.
Right.
You know, like, you don't have to continuously put it in someone's head. And I feel like a lot of people who are abusers, I think that their initial, like, acts of abuse aren't done with bad intent. Like, they don't really realize that they're doing it at first, but then it becomes a pattern, and then it starts to morph, in my opinion. Like, it can morph into other things. And that's why I was like, okay. And then it also goes to karma, when I was like, okay, that could be maybe, like, the start of emotional and psychological abuse of what they're going through. And if they had gotten married, if he had actually said I do after she said I do, because she said I do first, their relationship would be very toxic. It would be very, very bad, and I don't think that it would be a healthy environment for either of them.
Yeah.
Because after that, I guess, rumor is, he had gone to a bar, ran into a blonde, tall woman, which he said was his type. And when they brought it up at the reunion, he instantly got defensive. I don't want to talk about my sex life. No one asked you about your sex life. They said that you, not too long, a few days after saying no, meet with this blonde woman at a bar, was that your way of trying to move on? Like, that's what they were trying to get at. And you're getting offended. Well, he got a woman pregnant out of wedlock. And I just realized, by the way, it's wedlock. I've been saying wetlock this whole time. So he got her pregnant, and now he's a single dad because allegedly the mother has now abandoned the child with him permanently. And I'm like, okay, this is karma. Now you're going to be a single parent, which is one of the hardest things in the world to do.
Did he have a girl or a boy?
Boy. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I see all these women on his live like, oh my god, you're such a good man. He's parenting. Like, he ain't doing nothing special. Like, he's parenting. We need to stop.
But see, men need that mental reassurance as well. Because, and I'm not trying to put anybody down. I am not trying to degrade anybody or take away from anybody. But I feel that, again, generation after generation, women have always been stronger in the mind than men have. Because we come from a place where we have to just go and get things done and figure it out and just go with the flow. Men have always just been taught or raised, or whatever word we want to use, to where you go to work, you provide, you're a man, you get to be served, you don't get to have any feelings, you can't cry, you can't do this, you can't do that. So when a man is left in a position where he has to learn how to be a parent,
and has to figure it out.
Yes, as being single. Women, there's so many single women out there with more than one child, and they figure it out. Some of them are so lucky to have a village, and some of them are not. And men, they never really do. On the contrary, some men, and I will say this, and this is very touchy, I guess, a lot of men do have their mothers who make it even worse, especially in Hispanic families. The moms take care of, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen in any other culture. I'm pretty sure it does.
But our experience.
But I'm just saying, the men in Hispanic cultures, like, they have, the mom's always helping. The mom will help raise their kids, finish raising them, and not even finish raising them. Like, it's true. They're their mama's boys till their last breath. And I'm a mom of 4 boys, and I don't want to be that mom where I'm an enabler. I know that I mess up every day because I'm not perfect. But I don't want to be that mom. I cannot, because I'm not allowing my son to take accountability for anything. And I can't do that. And so with him and a lot of men who are single parents, what I was getting at is that they do also need the reassurance that they're doing a good job. They do need a village. They do need mental breaks because, again, I'm not putting anybody down, but I feel that men have always been so bottled, like they bottle everything in because they're taught not to show any emotion. You just go provide and that's it, you know? But these single fathers do need a lot of support because honestly, they don't have the instinct in them like we as women do. And unfortunately, that's why these men do become, I believe, narcissistic, abuser, emotional, physical, not because they do have malice, like Kai was saying, but because it's something it's something they just see, and it's like a circle. Okay, so this is how I have to do it. This is how I have to do it because this person's doing it. And I just feel that we need to support men in general, whether they're single parents, whether they're in a relationship. Men just need to open up a little bit more and allow their feelings and to feel these feelings and to show these feelings because they don't have to prove nothing to nobody, I think, just to themselves. And unfortunately, society for decades and decades and hundreds of years, we've allowed men to have this control over our lives and their own lives, and then that's how I feel men go into this where they don't even realize they're being abusive because it's part of who they've always been or what they've seen their parents, their uncles, so it's something, I don't know. I just feel that as a whole, I truly believe in karma, like you were saying, the universe, and we've had this conversation before in terms of what we believe in. But yeah, it's a full circle, and maybe this is his karma. Life is giving him something, and he's raising a boy to turn into a man, and maybe he's gonna see certain behaviors in his child that he's not gonna like, but yet they're a reflection of who he is.
Right.
So, moral of the story: if you're a guy, it's okay to cry.
It is okay to cry, and that's why I was like, I know that they need the support. Like, I get
I'm
that.
a softie for a guy that cries. I'm like, oh, okay.
We have males in our family that are single parents, and they've been doing it for their kids the way they're supposed to because it's called parenting.
And what works for them.
Yeah, and there's like one thing that got me with a different influencer, I guess you would call him, Scott D. Henry on TikTok. He got really upset because I guess he was like watching his kids, and someone said, "Oh, you're babysitting," and he's like, "No, I'm not babysitting. I'm parenting.
Not babysitting if it's your kids.
Like I'm not a stranger. They're my children." And so when they're like acting, all these women, I see their comments almost as if he is babysitting, and I'm like, "You're not. This is his child. Like your job is to raise this little human being. Like that's your job. It's not." And that's what I was like. I feel like that feeds the ego of someone who has. Again, like we know that not everything is done initially in a malicious way, but sometimes it feeds to those patterns, and it can increase the possibility of abuse later. And I don't think that that's something that a lot of people catch. So I was like, oh, okay, well that sounds like that's not good. Like I'm now looking at it, I don't think that's healthy of what you're doing and how you move about life, but karma came and bit you on your ass because it is the hardest job. I don't care what anyone says. Being a parent is a job. It's a job you don't get paid for, and it's one of the hardest things in life because your child's going to have their own little personality. They're going to have their own attitude. They're going to have their own little beliefs, and you have to maneuver how to raise an individual based off of this little person's personality, and it's not always going to clash. That's why there's rebellious kids. That's why stuff happens. And you would know a lot about, like, children being out of pocket. So, it's just one of those things that it's hard.
Don't make it seem like I just got heck of kids over here.
No.
I have no kids, just to clarify. No kids.
I don't know. Mello is out of pocket all the time.
He's over here taking a nap by his tia.
He loves my feet.
Just like he always does. Look, he looked up like, don't talk about me, Mom. I sorry, babies.
But, that was my, 2 cents. I think that it could have progressed if they had been in the relationships that I do.
And this was the couple from that show, and they're the only ones that didn't get married, or how does? Or,
No, there was a couple that didn't get.
Okay.
So what happens is like they have 20-something people.
Okay.
Compete for a shot at love, right? So
Right.
Time out. I think it's fair to say too that because they're in such a short time period, like that makes people like you're rushing to learn everything about this person before you marry them. So I don't know if I can't imagine that's scary, right? Because like I look at it like my situation, right, in the past. If I would have made the decision to marry that person in that amount before like moving, I would have been dead. I would have been dead. Like there's no way.
yeah.
That within a year, look at everything that
transpired.
Look at within a year.
Yeah.
Within a year, and it just spiraled. So taking that into consideration too, like not saying I condone anything he did at all, but I have to give a little bit of grace because you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to figure out, is this person really somebody I can marry? When I'm attracted to this other person, I don't know this person. I have to be all in with this person that I'm like, yeah, I know my mind's over here, but is my heart over here too? Or like my heart's over here, but my eyes are over here. And like, I'm supposed to be all over here. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of pressure, emotions.
you know, in regards to the time, I'm a true believer that time means nothing. Especially in love, because you could be with somebody for 10 years and think it, because I'm going to tell you with my experience, I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, I've been with my husband. We're going on 27 years, 28, 28. And, I don't know him 100%. I learn something new because he changes. I change every day. And, but I will say this, you can learn and feel things and love someone literally overnight and have a connection with someone in days, months, weeks, that better and more, than with the person you've been with for 10 years.
Right.
And then, like Kai said, in her situation, if she would have, married this person or whatnot, it all spiraled. Imagine where she could have been within a year. And it could have gone the other way around as well. This person could have changed for the better or something. But, again, you know.
Yeah.
And so those that are on the outside looking in, we don't know. So it's easy to judge, or it's easy to have an opinion in anybody's situation and be like, oh my God, but they look so good together. Oh my God. Because we know how to figure things out.
Right.
And so, yeah. So, with that being said, it's like, it's just hard. Men need a lot of help, and they need to learn how to accept it, and they need to learn how to ask for it. A lot of women are shutting down too, I've noticed, in this generation or in these few years back. I've noticed that a lot of women are shutting down. A lot of women are like, oh, I'm going to match energies. I don't match energies. You know why? Because I don't have time to allow your negativity to drain me. I'm going to sparkle. I'm going to shine. I'm going to let my light blind you and your demons, because I don't match energies. However, it's just not in me. I can be a bitch, a real one, and everybody knows that. But I'm like the nicest bitch you'll ever meet. Just don't. It's not contradictory. You know why?
It makes sense.
Because I will be so nice to you.
sure.
I will be so nice to you and give you anything and everything I can of me, emotionally, whatever I can, financially, no, because I'm always broke. But I mean, if I can buy you a coffee, I'll buy you a coffee. My point is that every one of us as human beings, I think, we all need help in some way, shape, or form. And it could be just by having a conversation with somebody. It could just be by, give me a hug today, or smiling. All of us need something positive in our lives. And when it comes to men, I feel that men, again, need more help than us women, because as women, we can kind of like regulate, and we have this internal instinct. We have this light that just, it's just for us, you know? And again, that's why we're nurturing. That's why we're mothers. That's why, and men are just technically just providers. They have to work. They have to protect. So, you know, to them, it's more of a physical thing versus an emotional or spiritual thing. So I feel that men, especially, again, all of this social media stuff, I'm not so much into all these shows like I used to be before I had my last kid. I'm going to be honest. I don't watch a lot of shows. And when I do, I binge watch. The ones I've watched was The Handmaid's Tale, little things like that. But when all these things come up on my social media, like a Reels, oh, did you see this? I kind of get a little invested in it just to see what's going on. But I have noticed that pattern, that women are shutting down and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to match your energy. I'm going to do that. And men are like, oh, well, let's just do this and that.
We're gonna go back and forth.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
It's just
Our
nothing
society
else.
is just not. Everybody's hurt, in my opinion. Everybody's hurt. Nobody wants to just be like, all right, look, let's. Like everybody needs to heal, I think.
Yeah.
And just be like,
Everybody
okay, look, like I'm definitely the type that's going to be the first to say I've been very like, I'm independent. I'm going to do it with or without you. So like, what are we doing? But I'm also learning that it's okay to be like, oh, okay, so you want to take me out. That's great. You want to buy something for me. That's great. Oh, like I want to do something nice for you. And so I am now, because I was kind of on that little hype too, like I'm going to match your energy, but that's not me.
Yeah.
So I have a few friends that I'm like, okay, so if I'm thinking about you, I'm going to call you. I'm going to text you. If you don't answer, you don't answer. I just had a friend that I called, I think yesterday, and they haven't answered the phone the last 10 times I've called them. And I get it, they're busy, whatever. They're not even in the same state. But then I got a text message back at like 2 o'clock in the morning because they're in a different state, right? And they were just like, yo, like, that means a lot. Like, you know, I'm busy. I'm not just like avoiding your calls or anything like that. Like, I appreciate that. And so I think just those little things, like little things, like people want to know that they are loved and cared about. And everybody's so defensive, I think. It's like, we're all busy. Everybody's got things going on, right? And like, it's a phone call. It's just a phone call. It's a text
or
message.
even
It
a
doesn't.
text.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't cost
I'm
me
really busy.
anything.
When I get a chance, I'll text you back.
It's all good. Like I'm not tripping, because at the end of the day, if something were to happen to me, to anybody, at least those people know, like, hey, I was thinking about you, or you know, I don't want to be thinking about like, dang, I should have, because I've had people like, I was supposed to go meet up with somebody and then now they're no longer here, and I'm like, dang, if I would have just saw them that one last time, you know. But as far as like the energy and things like that, like Claire said, I don't have time. Like, I just want to be who I am and how I am, and you take it or leave it. Because, but I also think, going back to the Bartiz and Nancy thing, I think it's hard when you struggle with kind of knowing who you are. Even though Nancy was like killing the game, right? She was a boss. She was gorgeous. I think she still kind of had a lot of like self-doubt in really fully being like, yeah, I'm a baddie, like, you know. And I think we all kind of do. Everybody in society has some type of doubt. And so those little comments hurt, right?
Yeah,
like,
but I also think he kind of fed off that.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
He
For
knew
sure.
She felt some kind of way, and he could,
For
he fed
sure.
off of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
But is
It
that
goes back to that, to the we were
Yeah.
saying. Some people are malicious, some are not, and
Right.
some people feed off of these things and then they progress.
But some people also use that as a way to like kind of hype themselves up, because you can't blame him for thinking he's God's gift to earth. Because for me, I'm God's gift to earth. Like, you can't knock me for being confident in myself. That can't be a flaw.
Right.
Because that's where we should be. We should believe that like there's nobody else out here like me. You are lucky to have me in your life. That can't be a flaw.
See, there's a difference between, I think, confidence and narcissism. Because when you're confident, I genuinely appreciate someone who is confident. Like I do. Like you think you're all that in a bag of chips, great. But
What kind of chips? Takis?
No. Cheetos.
Salt and vinegar?
Hot Cheetos.
Hot Cheetos get stale really quick though.
But
Salt and vinegar is good.
Yeah, I did.
Hot Cheetos. And, so like
I prefer Takis.
when you put someone else down though,
Yeah.
because you think you're all that, and
I'm better than you.
Yeah.
that's when I feel like it's different.
Well, I have something to say in terms of, I've always told my kids this. There always will be somebody better than you, smarter than you in something, okay? But you're also smarter than them and better than them in something else.
Yeah.
So do not ever put yourself down, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to do that for you.
Right.
But like you said, we are a gift to people. We really are. Our presence, just being here, is a big blessing, whatever you want to call it, because we all have our own purpose, you know. But there are people, women and men, who do think that they go around this lifetime making people feel like shit because it boosts their ego, and it's just really hard. And going back again to the show that we're talking about, lawsuits and all that stuff for the emotional abuse, physical abuse, and stuff like that. It is hard if you have no proof when it comes to the emotional, sexual, or any psychological abuse. However, I feel that people will know, especially if they have professional psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors on these shows. They will know how to identify certain factors or certain things of some type of abuse. Again, our reactions to things have a lot to do with the type of abuse we have endured. So a lot of people, you know, they say, well, there's no way you can tell. I mean, you don't need to be a professional to see people's behaviors. You really don't. So, I mean, as a professional, you can kind of lead them and say, hey, maybe do these breathing exercises or write this to help your mind. But that doesn't mean you have to be a professional to notice behaviors.
Going to that, moving on to the next couple, because
Yeah.
But Taylor and JT, I don't think you watched the season on season 5. They met again in the pod, got engaged. I think that people were starting to see the difference of how he was acting with her versus her with him.
Okay.
When they got to, because from the pod they go to like a mini honeymoon vacation with the other couples, and they get to spend time together as the ones who are moving forward with getting married. Right?
Oh, okay.
So it'll be like, let's say 4 couples get engaged, all 4 couples go
on
to
vacation.
So they get engaged before they see each other.
Yeah. So you're in the pods
Yeah.
and you propose when you're in the pods, and there's just
The pods, you don't see each other. You
No.
just hear each other talk.
Yeah, and you have conversations. That's why they call it Love Is
And how long is it for?
For 2 weeks.
Okay.
2 to 3 weeks before getting
Oh.
engaged.
Yes.
And then they go to a vacation for
Which
2
together,
weeks.
like with the rest of the couple that got engaged.
For like 2 weeks, and then they go and live together for another like 3 weeks, and then they get married. So everything is within a couple of months, right?
Right, like a
So-
6-week span, a month and a half.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay.
So they do things like that. Well, when they're having this conversation, this guy, he at first I was like, oh, he's kind of shy and kind of private, maybe a little bit like myself, right? Because you could tell he was kind of uncomfortable. And she was not that way. She was goofy, and Taylor, she was one that she's like, do you have a nickname? And he was like, not really. He was like, I just call me by my initials, like JP. And she was, I'm gonna call you Sugar Butt. And she was like trying to be cute. They seemed to start having a connection. He started to kind of open up with her a little bit more, and they were having actual conversations in the pods. He sees her, his face, as soon as the camera shows that he's looking at her, changes. He's disgusted. Like, he looks like he's just not happy to see her at all.
Wow.
And I'm like, why? She's so pretty. And
Men are more physical, that's why.
he didn't like the fact that she was wearing makeup.
Yeah, men are more physical.
He did not like that. She didn't, mind you, her makeup was probably like mine.
Yeah.
Very, very
Subtle.
minimal and subtle, but she had lashes like Kai. So that to him was too much makeup.
My windshield wipers. Okay.
That was too much makeup, and that made her a fake person. So he no longer was having conversations with her, and she's like, hey, like, I'm going to talk to you. And
Yeah.
and she goes, let's just act like we're in the pods again and let's have a conversation. Trying to bring him out of like that
Defense
moment.
mode.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're in their room, they have a conversation. She's like, why are you just so quiet? He goes, why do you keep bringing up that topic? And like, get over it already. Like, we talked about it. And she goes, no, we haven't. I've talked. You haven't said anything. And he's like, I just don't like makeup. I like it when you look like this. And mind you, they're about to go to bed, so her face is washed.
Yeah,
whatever. The only thing that she has is, again,
The lashes.
And so
Lashes are life.
They are, because you can go to bed with a clean face and still look fabulous.
right. And so she's like,
I need to get my
she goes,
extensions.
I like wearing makeup. It makes me feel good, and I barely wear any makeup.
Yeah.
You know, like, and he kept focusing on that it's too much makeup, it's too much this, and I think she realized at that point, like, I'm not going to be in a relationship where this man is going to dictate what I can and cannot wear. And I feel like that's also a form of abuse, is when you're telling her she cannot, like, almost like an authoritarian type, like, relationship where you cannot wear this because I don't want you to. I said no.
Because I like you.
Yeah.
They try to do the whole manipulation. But I like you this way, okay? But I like myself too.
I like me this way.
Yeah.
So,
like,
what are we doing?
No. And then
Yeah.
she left. She was like, you know, they went to breakfast the next morning. They went to different rooms. She ended up getting a different room for the night because she didn't want to be in that space. And the next morning, he didn't change his, like, attitude. He was still cold. Bien seco con ella. And I'm like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, I'm getting mad at him.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, she's literally wearing makeup the way I wear makeup, where it's very minimal. Like, a couple of, like, maybe foundation, a little bit of blush highlighter, and maybe a little bit of bronzer. Like, that's it.
That sounded like a whole lot of makeup, friend.
Not when it's like super light. When it's like super light.
She
it's not,
said
like, gel
foundation,
on.
blush highlighter, bronzer.
Yeah.
But maybe.
So I mean,
Lip gloss.
it may be a lot of makeup, but you don't.
It is, but it's not.
It's like, it's not like I always put a full beat on my face. No, like, sometimes I'll just put on lip gloss and just...
Men just don't understand that anyway, so it's not gonna.
It's not gonna
There's
click.
no
But still,
explaining.
Like, I'm like, why are you so... And then they go to the reunion. All of the cast members had watched the scenes. They watched it back, and they all noticed how he acted with her. And so they were trying to kind of, like, dissect what is the problem with makeup. He's like, well, she's pretty. And like, so would you date her looking the way that she looks right now? Mind you, they're dressed up fancy. They go to the reunion, and he's like, no. Again, because she's wearing makeup. Again, it's an issue. And so, like, are you seeing anybody now? And he said yes. And they're like, does she wear makeup? And he didn't want to answer that. And then someone brings up, they're like, no, she doesn't. So he dates someone who doesn't wear makeup for the simple fact that that's not what he likes. But I think that when you start to make someone feel bad about their appearance, if they had been in a relationship longer, had they actually said I do, got married, I think that it could have led to abusive tendencies when it comes to how she looks. I don't like you wearing this. I don't want you to wear that. If she allowed it to continue. And she, if, you know, things like that. That to me was very controlling, and that can be abusive in my
And I agree with it. I totally agree with it with someone who has experienced it. Now, I'm not accusing my husband of anything, or myself or anything like that, but it has happened in my relationship, and I never saw it as abuse until now that I'm in my 40s. And my husband and I are going through so many different things. And I'm not trying to paint him out as a bad person or anything, but because I'm not perfect. But this kind of explains, like, I know that my family, like my in-laws and stuff, they see it really wrong because of the way I used to express myself. I've always had a big mouth anyway. My family knows. I've always talked, you know, and whatever. And I didn't know how to shut up. And if I didn't I fucking tell you to do something? Stuff like that. Point being is, that's how I spoke to my husband for many years. And when we had the kids, I would, in front of his family, in front of mine, I'd always get shit from my mom, my brothers, his family. They didn't really say it up front, but I know it bothered them just because of the way they treated me. And to this day, you know, But it's like I've said, I'm not excusing my behavior, but my outburst or the way I reacted to him was because of everything that had been bottled up, you know? And my thing is like, we have 2 babies back to back. You see me struggling with both of them. Help me with one of them. And I would react. That's me. And it goes back to what you were saying. My whole point with this is, when we were younger and dating, I did do all of that. He wanted me to dye my hair a certain way, I dyed it a certain way. He wanted me to dress a certain way, I dressed a certain way. And even then, he was not giving me that value. And when we were first married, it's like, I needed the reassurance, like, hey, you are pretty, or hey, that looks nice on you. But then when I didn't get it, I just stopped taking care of myself. Okay, this is what he wants, this is what he's gonna get. I gained I was to 240 pounds. I had the kids, never really got ready, you know, and so it's like, I can't blame him 100%. I take responsibility because I allowed it. So again, it goes back to that abuse. You can call it abuse because to me, that's what it is. And again, I'm not trying to portray him as like a horrible human being, but that's what he's done. And I allowed it, and then I allowed my reactions to be horrible. Like, you know.
So I have a question, though, because I don't necessarily... I agree, but I don't agree. Because at what point are you... So I've been in a relationship where literally, like, I'll be wearing something, and they're like, what are you wearing? Like, I think you should wear something else. I don't feel like that's abuse. I feel like... Or because it could go vice versa, because I'm going to look at my man and be like, what are you wearing? Like, wear something else. Or I don't like your, like, I've literally been with somebody and I'm like, dude, I literally hate your hair like that. Like,
Yeah.
my ex has now currently was growing dreads. And I'm like, bro, I literally hate your hair. Like, ew.
Yeah.
But I think there's... For mine,
A fine line.
There's a line between like, I'm gonna do things like asking my man, what color nails should I get? What color should I dye my hair?
Yeah,
Again,
and that's good.
like, and I'm gonna do what, like I'm gonna do necessarily, like if he's like, I want you to dye your hair, I want you to shave your hair off, I want you bald. No, bro, not doing that. But if he's like, oh yeah, I think you should dye your hair red, and I'm like, that's not really what I was thinking, but okay, like, okay,
but see, the way you're mentioning it and the way you're saying it, it's just a suggestion. Hey, I think that you'd look pretty this way.
Got it.
Or you tell your man, hey, I don't like that hair on you. I think if you try this, it'd look better. So again, it's the way we say things. Now, if you're with someone, this is where I feel the difference between the mental, emotional abuse is. Oh, you're wearing that? That's like, what do you mean? Oh, you're wearing that?
the way I dress.
You just made me feel small because it's like, what's
wrong with what I'm wearing? Yeah,
like, you know, or you do your makeup a certain way, and they'll be like, oh, well, don't you think that's too much?
So
like,
I think
it's
with
the
the
way
show,
you say things.
I think with the show,
it's backed up with the way you say things, not suggesting. When it's like, I don't want you to wear your hair like that.
You should do this.
And you should do
versus
this.
this would look really
it's
nice.
not like an option kind of thing.
Where
Got it.
there's
Okay.
a thin line between abuses.
But I think
it's backed up by them treating you like you're a piece of shit.
So the guy though, so going back to the guy, right? So they just met. So how come it's fair? And again, I didn't watch the season, so this is just a question.
Right.
How come it's fair to say that you think it would be abusive because he's not, like, obviously it's not just her specifically, right? So how, and that's his type, is he doesn't like the type, like he doesn't like makeup. Like that's okay. But how come it's fair to say you think it would be abusive?
So,
Because I feel like abusive is thrown around really lightly and it shouldn't be.
Because I think that could eventually lead to emotional and psychological
Why?
abuse. because then now you're making this person feel less than because they want to look a certain way and you don't want them to look that way.
But that's not fair. Like, that's his, like, that's what he likes. So to say he's not going to, they're not going to continue the relationship, right? So it's not really fair to say that it's going to be abusive because he may not put himself in that position. Like, they're not together. So I feel like it's not fair to say that he could be abusive.
I think
Like-
it could have led to being abusive had they stayed together.
But that's saying that he would be abusive.
Because I think that could eventually lead to emotional and psychological
Why?
abuse. Because then now you're making this person feel less than because they want to look a certain way and you don't want them to look that way.
But that's not fair. Like, that's his, like, that's what he likes. So to say he's not going to, they're not going to continue the relationship, right? So it's not really fair to say that it's going to be abusive because he may not put himself in that position. Like, they're not together. So I feel like it's not fair to say that he could be abusive.
I think
Like-
it could have led to being abusive had they stayed together.
But that's saying that he would be abusive.
If they were to stay together and he says, like, you do what you want, like, I love you, but do what you want, and then you continuously make this person feel like they're not enough, that they are not good enough, that they're not pretty enough because they wear makeup, they do something that makes them happy, you are emotionally and psychologically making them feel like they're small.
But you're taking this like situation that's been a minute and a half, let's just say a minute and a half. So all perfect example. X started growing dreads.
Yeah.
I hated it. I was like, this looks horrible. I do not like it. I'm not attracted to you at this moment because your hair looks horrible. Of course, I was attracted to him, but like, I did not like that process. I wanted him to cut it. I was like, cut your hair. Was that abusive?
I think because you did not like the process and he was trying to tell you, like, hey, like, give it a minute. It's going to look funky at first. Give it a minute. And then you do say, I like everything else about you. I'm attracted to you.
I didn't say any of that though. I said, I do not like this. Cut your hair.
I think that could have led to abusive tendencies if other dynamics of your relationship are affected.
I think that's the same exact scenario.
No, so when you're like, again, it's just a minute, right? I said that it could have led to abusive tendencies.
Yes.
Not that it was abuse in that moment, because
That it could lead him to have abusive tendencies towards her
towards her.
by trying to control and say, okay, well, I don't like this. I don't want you. It's one thing when you tell somebody, this is what I understand her point and I understand your point. And I feel that this is where the crossroads is. Someone's demands, because it's one thing when you tell somebody, hey, I don't like that hair on you, honey, like, or babe, or whatever you want to call them. I don't like it, and you need to take it off. Like, that's fine. That's not abusive. Like, just don't wear it like that. Like, fix it. Yeah. Versus, I don't want you to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
You're just wording it differently.
Yeah.
That's abuse. Because you're controlling somebody. You wouldn't like it. We had this, you just said it earlier. Yeah. Hey, I'd like you with red hair. I want to see what red hair looks on you.
Yeah.
Versus, you need to dye your hair red because that's what I like.
But I also think
what Maya's saying is, if he told her, well, that's not what I like. I don't like you like that. You need to take that off. Da 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 da. This is what I like. If it would have continued, it would have been a control thing. Like, hey, and take those lashes off. I want you to wear those shoes. That's abuse.
But I think it also comes like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's stuck, but I think the moment you say it could have led to any relationship could lead to abusive behaviors, period.
And that includes parents, siblings, work environment, anything.
But I think, again, abuse gets thrown around really lightly, and it should not be. Because I definitely feel like, one, the fact that my ex had confidence and was like, screw you, I'm going to do what I got to do. And then years later, his dreads are now down to the middle of his back and they're freaking gorgeous. And so now I'm like, oh, okay. Like, now I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the fact that I'm a woman coming to you and saying, like, no, cut your hair is completely different than if it was vice versa, right?
Right.
And that's not fair either.
No, I don't. I don't see it that way. I see your point, and I don't see it that way. But people do see it that way.
The moment you say that it could have led to abusive tendencies, is already you're labeling him as an abuser.
So I don't think that I think some people don't intentionally abuse initially the person that they're with, but I think in his case, in a case like that, where you're saying, I'm not going to talk to you or have a conversation with you, even though you're my fiance, because you're wearing makeup.
I think he just wasn't attracted to her.
Like makeup, like that's abusive tendencies.
And it goes back to what we were saying earlier. Men push women away by making them feel bad about themselves because they don't want to take accountability for the way they are fucking up. Yeah. That's the way I see it. So I see your point where we could be labeling him as how he can have abusive tendencies. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the initial conversation. Men will never take accountability for nothing. And that is 100% proven through history. So what men tend to do, and a lot of women learned a lot. So women can manipulate really good. Again, men have this tendency of being labeled, like Kai said, as abusers because of the way they speak and the way they approach certain situations. And yet women are always the victim. However, a lot of women know how to play victim so they can get into situations that are going to benefit them and hurt others. So again, it goes back to what we said. Men, they're labeled. So are women. Oh, women this or that. But my point is this. Like, I understand where Maya is going to, where it's not, I don't feel that she's technically labeling him as an abuser. She's just seeing in her perspective what behaviors he has that can lead him to have these, I guess, moments of turning into, or him becoming an abuser. Because again, it's the control thing. That's abuse. So you're right. People take abuse lightly and they use the word and throw it around. But anytime you're controlling or trying to control someone or something, that's abusing whatever power you have, in my thought. So, again, the way we approach things, I don't like that haircut on you. Or, babe, those shoes don't go with that outfit. It's totally different. Yeah. Can you try? Versus, I want you to wear this. Right. I want you to do your... So, to me, that's already...
From the statements, though, like, if people process things differently, again, the show, I think, doesn't do justice, right? Yeah. Because, like, if you just found out, oh, shit, I'm about to marry this person, and they wear makeup, and I'm not attracted to her, like... oh fuck, how am I gonna get out of this? Because that's how I see it. It's like he's sitting back and he's like, oh shit, how do I get out of this? But I'm not attracted to her. I'm not gonna have that conversation. What do you mean? I'm not gonna sit here and look at you and be like, I'm not attracted to you, you're ugly as shit. How are you gonna have that conversation? No, respectfully.
Not like that. Like you have that conversation.
You can just sit down and be like, hey, you know what? I had different perspectives. I had a different idea.
People don't do that though. Like, let's be real. People don't do that. So that's exactly. So in my opinion, if you already know this man struggles communicating or has been closed off before, she went in knowing that, right? And again, not taking anything from her or any of that.
I thought that they had good conversations in the pod.
At first it was...
and then once they saw each other, it changed.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought it all changed once he saw her.
Their first 2 dates...
It was like...
He was
in the pod, they didn't see each other.
He was like, shut off.
They didn't see each other. He was kind of like quiet, but I understood it because you're in a pod. There's camera
you don't know.
Around, you're kind of like stuck, right? But then he ended up opening up, having conversations with her in the pod.
Okay.
But when they saw each other after that, and they go to Mexico, fueron a Cancun for the little mini honeymoon, he was zero conversation with her. He was talking to everybody else but her.
Okay, so I'm still confused. So in the pods, before they even saw each other face to face, all they heard was their voices.
You don't meet until you get to Mexico.
But they had good conversations.
Yes. In the first two, like, meetups.
How many meetups did they have total before they saw each other?
A total of, like, 12 dates prior to seeing
So only the first two were good conversations. The rest he shut down.
The first two, he was kind of, like, shy.
Oh, okay. And then so the other 10, they were fine.
They were fine. But I think if
And
you're
then meeting each other, no conversation.
So I think if you're if you meet somebody, I mean, not necessarily me because I'm not very shy, and you're not attracted to them, and you're not confrontational. If you're not that person that's going to have those difficult conversations, you're going to shut down. You're going to fall back. Like, I can have a conversation with anybody and everybody because I don't care about what they got going on. If I have this connection, and I knew I had this connection with this person, and I'm a good person, I'm gonna struggle and think about, like, okay, so I just connected with this person. I'm not attracted to them. I don't like that they wear makeup. So how do I get out of this respectfully, not hurt their feelings, but get out of it?
Talk to them.
So we're going to have that answer when we come back because we are almost out of time. This is going to be a 2-part episode. Please stick around for part 2 where we'll discuss the end of that conversation with Taylor JP about how you have that conversation, and also talk about Renee Posh, I think that's how it's pronounced.
Posh, yeah, I believe.
And her lawsuit against the production company, and Tran Dang, her lawsuit against the company of Love is Blind. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Before we go, Clara, you want to say adios?
Adios. Nos vemos.
Okay.
Bye.
Adios, bye.
Thanks for tuning in, mi gente. Remember to tell your friends to tell their friends so that way we can be friends. Con todos se puede hablar. Adiós. Bendiciones.